speaker, Dr. Sarvjit Heral. He is the Director of Academics and Competition at India STEM Foundation to deliver his inaugural address on the topic Simplifying STEM, Transforming Education for Tomorrow's Innovators. Without further delay, let me introduce about Dr. Sarvjit. He is a dynamic STEM leader with expertise in innovation, strategic consulting, technology transfer, and business development. He has played a key role in advancing STEM education, fostering partnerships. He has played a key role in advancing and promoting cutting edge educational technologies, inspiring students and educators to embrace innovation. His leadership has significantly impacted the promotion of STEM learning across diverse platforms, inspiring students and educators alike to embrace the future of innovation. Over to you, Dr. Herald.
Thank you so much. Though I am the first, I'm sure the best is yet to come as we have got the long conference here today. So, today I'll be speaking on simplifying STEM for transforming education for tomorrow's innovators. And my name is Dr. Sarjit Herald. So, different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and a good day to everyone. So, let me start. In today's rapidly evolving, let me just, I think my screen is not changing. Yeah. In today's rapidly evolving world, AI, robotics, and data science are shaping the future. But for many students, STEM education feels complicated, largely inaccessible, and also out of reach, especially in the government schools in India and in the underprivileged communities. At India STEM Foundation, we believe that every child, regardless of their background, deserves an opportunity to learn, to create, and to innovate using STEM. So today I will highlight on these points that what challenges we face in implementing STEM education within the government schools, how are we making STEM easy for students to understand, and how are we empowering teachers with our STEM training, and lastly on helping government schools to implement STEM with ease. So, so yes. So my first point is the challenges we face in implementing the STEM education in government schools. While STEM, we all understand that STEM is the key to the future of jobs and also to the innovation. Government schools face a lot of roadblocks in assessing it. It entirely depends on the leadership of the school, the principal who is responsible for directing the school, but the teachers, the subject teachers, a lot of times we see that they're not aware of what is STEM. They're not aware of AI, robotics, or even data science, to be few. Another thing is that they do not have the labs, they do not have the right components, and also the funds to build that kind of an infrastructure which is required. Because of these, STEM is perceived as a very difficult subject by the teachers because they lack motivation. It also discourages students from engaging in it. So without the intervention, these students risk of being left behind in the digital economy. Our panelists from prestigious government and private schools will discuss more on this topic. We at India STEM Foundation are focused on simplifying STEM and making it accessible for every child in India because of these challenges. So, how are we making STEM easy for students to learn? In India, our culture is to memorize the subjects. Right. In India, we have a large population, we have a large number of students, and it has always been about how much marks have they scored in order to get to a good institution, good higher education institution, and also often in the job. However, STEM is not about memorization. A person like me can never memorize. I can only, think, I can only explore and innovate. So STEM is all about exploration and innovation. So we try to make STEM learning fun and interactive. We introduce students to robots, we help them build the circuits, we help them build the robots, we help them code the AI model so that they can understand if we are programming machines, how humans can also think. And then we encourage them to experiment with the real world problems. We introduce them to the UN sustainability goals, which are pressing problems along the globe, especially in our country, as Mr. Sharma just said that Delhi is one of the most polluted cities. So how can we solve that problem? So we encourage kids to think about it. We encourage them to experiment and come out with the solutions. Of course, we are not expecting an industry-ready solution from a school student. However, that thought, that spark could help them develop a very nice career. In order to make STEM accessible, we are focused on providing the low cost, high impact STEM kits so that resources do not remain a limitation for these students. We also, a lot of times, when we go to a government school, we also see that they do not have the computers. If you look at the modern softwares, they require the latest configuration, they require high RAM, high processor. So we often also have to provide them the computers and also the internet facility. We face this kind of a challenge, especially during the lockdown when the kids were not able to go to the school and we had to teach them over the internet. A lot of these students, they did not have a smartphone at home. They at school they did not have a computer and an internet connection, so we had to provide that. We also break complex topics into easy to understand modules. Of course, if we are teaching them robotics, if we are teaching them electronics, it is still a very complex topic. However, we take them through the videos in order to raise the awareness, in order to inspire them. Then we take them across the simulations. There are a lot of tools online available where they can play around with the simulations, and then we introduce them to the hardware so that they can create, they can program, and they can solve problems. We also give students opportunity to access for international robotics competitions. So one such competition which India STEM Foundation organizes every year, and we have been doing this since 2006, is World Robot Olympiad. And we have got Mr. Brent from WRO today, who is going to discuss on how WRO makes STEM practical and fun through competitions. So, hands on learning, solving real world problems, and these showcase opportunities. But I believe if you have acquired a skill, you also need to showcase it to the world so that you can get the right feedback. Through this, we ensure that students from all backgrounds see STEM as an exciting and an achievable program in order to become global citizens and thrive in the technology driven world. In this, the teacher training is something which is very, very important. One of the biggest barriers, as I mentioned earlier, is teachers who are trained on STEM. The schools would have subject teachers, but they have got no clue on how can we introduce STEM. So for these teachers, we provide them hands-on workshops. We provide them workshops in person within their schools, and we also provide them workshops online so that they are continuously upskilled. We through the workshops we also give them the pre-designed lesson plan which can fit into their school curriculum. As I said before, that motivation to do some extra work is missing from these teachers. So we give them the modules, we give them the training so that they can easily implement within their classes. We use WRO as an example where, because in WRO students need to solve a real world problem, it is a theme based competition every year. So through that, we also bring WRO within the classrooms in the Indian schools. The support and mentorship to the school teachers are very important. So with the help of corporates, when we are running a CSR program, we do set up a lab, But we also provide a teacher from ISF who works within the school very hard in the first year of our engagement. In the second year, we encourage the school teachers to take responsibilities, to share responsibilities along with the ISF teacher. And then in the third year, we bring forward the school teachers, and India STEM Foundation teachers act as a support to these teachers. This helps us, give more ownership to the school, to give more ownership to the teachers, so that we can plan our exit and we can go to more schools in our country. Through this, the program is made sustainable across within the school and also enables us to feed more schools within the country. We do not leave these teachers alone. We try to meet them on at least on monthly basis through, of course, through online, so that we can clear their doubts and answer their questions. So training school teachers is something which we believe ensures that STEM education is reaching to the most underserved community and to the classrooms. And through this, we encourage teachers to think and solve problems. We have got Dr. Walter Stroop here, from who is the chair of STEM education at University of Massachusetts, and today he will discuss on how asking questions can benefit within a STEM classroom. In terms of helping the government schools implement with ease, so we have got people on ground. We, as I said, we also provide the teachers. But in order to overcome the barriers of that there is no equipment, no curriculum, no trained teachers, we set up the lab within the school. We have got a set of kits which are low cost and affordable, and with the support of corporate, we are able to provide the learning material and the kits to these schools, and we take it step by step so that the adoption becomes seamless. As I mentioned before, our teacher is there to support the school teacher, and gradually we try to transfer the ownership to the school teachers and the school. The role of the school head, the principal, is also important, and we are in continuous engagement with the principal in order to keep the spirits high. Corporates play a very, very important role because in India, through corporate social responsibility, through CSR, we get funds from the corporate in order to sponsor the education of the underserved students. We have got Mr. Ashwani today, who is the CEO of GMR Varalakshmi Foundation, who will talk about equality and inclusive STEM education. So, with these programs, schools can effortlessly integrate STEM and empower students to become innovators of tomorrow. So, we are on a mission to simplify STEM learning, empower teachers, and make implementation seamless for schools, especially those serving the underprivileged community. Just before the keynote, we will hear Mr. Sudhanshu Sharma on how India's STEM Foundation is making STEM education accessible for all. So, as I conclude, I would like to invite all of you to let's transform the education and create tomorrow's innovators through STEM. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Harold, for setting the stage with such an inspiring perspective on STEM education and transformating potential. So up next, we have Mr. Anurag Kumar. He's the Director of Science City, Kolkata. So to give a brief intro of Mr. Kumar, he holds an MSc in Physics from IIT Delhi, and he served as junior research fellow at the same institution. So with vast experience across Bhubaneswar, New Delhi, Patna, Kolkata, these are the cities, beautiful cities in India. He has coordinated numerous exhibitions and gallery redesigns, including international assignments in Sri Lanka and Kuala Lumpur. He has presented papers at international symposium, including ECSIT in Finland and Science Center World Summit in Japan. So he'll be discussing how NCSM Science Centers innovation hubs from learning principle to planning products. So let's now hear from him how they are bridging the gap in STEM between ideas and implementation. Over to you, Shri Anurag Kumar.
Good afternoon and good morning to the panelists and the guests. Briefly about the National Council of Science Museums, for those who don't know about it. It's an autonomous organization under Ministry of Culture, Government of India, which the objective of this organization is to set up science centers, innovation hubs, and planetarium systems all across the country. Under its umbrella, 25 science centers operate throughout the country. NCSM has also established 30 more science centers which have been handed over to the respective state governments. And we are currently working on 34 more science centers which will be developed and delivered to the respective state governments for its operations and running. So besides the science centers, as I mentioned, we also develop innovation hubs. In fact, the innovation hubs of NCSM, this task was given to NCSM by the Planning Commission of India in 2013, where we were mandated to establish 60 innovation hubs all across the country by the year 2025. Until now, the objective of innovation hubs are obviously to promote innovation, creativity, and engagement in science, then foster the problem-solving ability and project-based learning. In fact, one of the major objectives is also to retain the talent in science and STEM education. So these are the objectives of innovation hubs. Till now, we have opened 47 innovation hubs across the country. 11 more innovation hubs are almost ready and will be delivered by the year 2025. The first innovation hub was inaugurated on August 2013 in Birla Industrial and Technological Museum, which is the oldest science museum of the country. Now, the facilities of Innovation Hub includes a discovery hall. I'll give a brief about what all these means. The Innovation Resource Center and Hall of Fame, the Idea Lab, something what we call in India Tod Phod Jod, which means break and remake. Then Kabad se Jugaad. Jugaad is a very famous term used in India, where we build things from scrap. And then Idea Box and a design studio. So the Discovery Hall has got a small setup of a kind of science center type exhibits, which are STEM-based exhibits, the physics, chemistry, maths, science, technology kind of exhibits. And then we have Innovation Resource Center. This primarily has got the facility where the students can browse through all the innovation works which are happening all across the country at one place. And in fact, in addition to that, some of the recent innovations that have been done primarily in India are also shown in something what we call Hall of Fame, where the details about those innovations are kept. Then we also have the Idea Lab, which is basically a multidisciplinary lab, which contains a small lab on physics, chemistry, biosciences, then computer science, mechanical engineering, electronics engineering. In some cases, we also have labs related to biotechnology and nanotechnology. So it's basically a multidisciplinary lab at one place. Then, as I mentioned, Tod Phod Jod, which means break and remake, where we keep some gadgets. Students can bring those gadgets from their home also or from their nearby places. And they are asked to open those gadgets and see what is there inside, study the details of the gadgets, and then reassemble them in their original state. And then we also have Kabad se Jugaad, which means using the scrap for making models and gadgets and any equipment that they wish to make. Primarily, the idea comes from the student. They go through the scrap which are available all around them, or some of the scraps that we keep, and then they have to think of something which they can make out of those scraps, and then using our multidisciplinary lab, they make those gadgets in the innovation hub. Then we also have an idea box where primarily the students or any visitor coming to the innovation hub can drop their idea of any kind of innovation related to STEM education, and that they keep that in the box. And students who are the members of this innovation hub, they come, they open this idea box, and if they like any of the ideas which have been proposed in the idea box, they can work in these on these projects in the innovation hubs itself. If they have their own idea, they work on their own idea. But even if they do not have any idea, they can choose idea from the idea box and start working on those ideas. Then we also have a design studio where we keep some basic 3D printer is there, and then some other design gadgets. The computers where designs can be done, those things are available, and the children can print their own gadgets or the tools or the objects that they want to use for their research or their project. The next step for the Innovation Hub is to establish innovation clubs in the schools to encourage the students to explore this creativity in their schools itself. Because at times it is very difficult for the students to come to the innovation hubs after they finish their classes or during the weekends. So we are mandated to create innovation clubs in the schools itself in a smaller scale, where the students can be inspired to take part in such activities of innovation. Some of the activities of innovation hubs are we have group exposure for the students, so that we encourage them to become the members of the innovation club, who can work on the weekends or on holidays on these innovation hubs for enhancing their creativity or converting their ideas to the projects. Then we also organize periodic innovation fairs and activities, competitions and all. We have lectures from prominent people. We call innovators and researchers who interact with the students in this facility. And we also show some interesting films about the inventions and innovations that have happened. So it is full of activities throughout the year. Then we some glimpses of the innovation festivals that we organize throughout the country. One of the activities, as mentioned by Sarvjit and Sudhanshuji, we participated with ISF, India STEM Foundation, to organize World Robot Olympiad, and the first one which we organized was in 2016, where we also organized the world competition, the World Robot Olympiad, which was a great success. I think Sudhanshuji will talk more about this. Then some of the major achievements of Innovation Hub are many of the students have developed such gadgets which have been we have applied for patent also for many of them. Some of them have been granted, some of them are still pending. So a glimpse of the achievements of Innovation Hubs are, you can see them on the screen. This is one where a student developed a foot-operated page-changing machine, which was helpful for the differently abled students, and he was felicitated by the then President of India for this particular project. Then some more activities and the projects which have been developed by the students in the Innovation Hub. Some of the patents which have been granted, this was long back, the electric cycle design and the multi-purpose farming vehicle and free food preservers. Around 20 odd projects, the patent has already been applied, and they are in the process of being granted. So these are some of the activities of the Innovation Hub that we are doing in order to promote STEM education. The idea is to create the facility, give the platform to the students who generally don't get such platform at one place, and to encourage them to use all the elements of STEM education to convert their ideas into real life projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anurag Kumar, for shedding light how these innovation hubs they are bringing change into the STEM education and how they are bringing revolution, a great revolution among kids. So STEM truly comes alive when learning is hands-on and engaging. So to explore this, we now have Mr. Brent Hutchison. He's the chairman of WRO Advisory Council. So let me talk about his brief intro. He is a passionate advocate for play-based learning and a director of hands-on technology and care for education. He has pioneered numerous initiatives using Lego tools to help children develop executive functioning skills like cognitive flexibility, working memory, and self-control. As an Ashoka Fellow, he brings strategic knowledge to the WRO Advisory Counseling, enabling it to adapt to the evolving educational landscape. Now he will take us through making the STEM practical and fun through competition. So over to you, Mr. Brandt.
Thank you. Good day, everybody. I know that we're running a little bit late, so I'm going to go as quickly as possible. I really want to talk today about my teaching background and the experience I had as a teacher, so that you get an understanding of where I'm coming from on this topic. I taught many years ago in a school, and I was a very inspired and dedicated teacher. I thought I tried my best for my students, but I made a lot of mistakes as a young teacher, and I want to talk about those today and how that leads into the competition as a solution. As a teacher, I worked really hard, so I thought I had to put in the effort. So I put a lot of effort in getting to understand the content. I was really focused on the end result. I wanted my children to do really well. But what I didn't focus was on giving them enough opportunities to demonstrate the knowledge. I prepared the knowledge for them, I presented the knowledge to them, and I hoped that they would remember that knowledge or retain that knowledge. I checked up on the end result, but I didn't put any focus on the process. And so today I'd like to talk to you about what I call the 3 Ps, my important Ps that I would like to share with you as a way for schools and teachers to consider how STEM could perhaps be more beneficial and a bit more exciting for children. So the first P for me would be for process. Just want to check if is the screen shared? Yes. Yeah, for process. I want teachers to focus on process. It's really important that teachers understand the importance of process. And instead of focusing on the end result, if you do focus on the process, it's a very good chance that the end result will take care of itself. And so if teachers are able to understand what that means, if teachers can invest time in finding out what does process mean and how do I focus on process, it's going to change many things. It'll change the way they assess the work. It'll change the way that they present the material to the children. And that leads to my second P, which is provocation. Really good teachers in the future are going to provocate. They are going to present problems to children and ask children to solve these problems. And instead of trying to tell children about what they understand as the answers, they're going to ask children to solve those problems. And if the provocation is exciting, children will jump into that and try and find their own solutions. And that's where we're going to find creativity and imagination and everything coming out. The last P for me is play or playful. It's about having a playful approach to learning. We need to make learning, we want children to be engaged. We need to make learning fun. And when I say fun, it's not about just playing. It's about a structured play. It's a playful nature. It's a playful way of presenting the material. And this is where we get to World Robot Olympiad. In 2009, I was very lucky to go and experience World Robot Olympiad for the very first time in Korea. And I was blown away. As a teacher, I was absolutely amazed at what these kids were doing and what the solutions they were coming up with. And I was so taken up by it that I wanted South African kids to have the same opportunity. And I came back to South Africa and started it. And what I want to tell you is don't expect to do amazing things in the beginning. You know, we started with a couple of teams, a handful of teams. It's taken years to build up enough teams in South Africa. It's taken years to persuade teachers and schools that this is potentially the right way to go. And when I say potentially the right way to go, what do I mean by that? Essentially, there are many, many competitions available around the world, STEM competitions for children to participate in. There are so many. If you go onto the internet and just troll STEM competitions for children, you're going to get so many that come up. That means there's no lack of opportunity for us to put children into these incredible areas. And when I say incredible areas, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a problem, and normally a world problem, that children have to consider, use materials. Some of those are very specific materials. They use a very specific product type. But a lot of the good competitions are opening up to any product type in the world today. And children get a chance to go in and participate in these competitions. And why is that different to what we're able to do in the classroom? One, it can supplement what we're doing in the classroom. But number two, what it can do is it can drive a process of helping teachers understand better what they should be doing in the classroom. And so I say that by wanting you to think about what happens when the child goes through one of these robotic experiences. I want you to have a look at this picture. I want you to have a look at the faces, the interactions. I mean, do you see this in your classroom? If you don't see this in your classroom, then perhaps the robotics competitions, the STEM competitions are a way for you to think about getting these type of reactions. If you look at this picture, you'll see joy, but you'll also see frustration. There's some kids there that are really frustrated. You'll see heartbreak, you'll see laughter, tears, relief, concentration. You'll see older students, you'll see younger students. And they're all choosing to be present, and they're choosing to learn in a more active, engaging environment. And this is what I think should drive the classroom. If we can get some of this into the classroom, I think it will really help teachers who are trying to introduce STEM. And so competitions are an incredible way, because competition is like the ultimate goal of any activity. If you play any sport, if you think about that, could you imagine how boring it would be to practice cricket, practice hockey, practice football, and never play a match? What would it feel like to practice all day, but then never get to test your skills, never test to see whether your skills are comparable to other people? And that's what these competitions allow us to do. It allows us to take the content that we want them to learn in the schools, and we allow them to demonstrate an ability in a much more enjoyable, fun way. And I think these competitions are something for teachers to consider. I think schools should consider it. And I think schools need to think about some issues. And these are very quick, the issues I want them to think about. That if you do projects, or if you allow children to practice in your schools, if you tinker, if you allow them to tinker, or if you allow them to play, it all takes time. We need time in order for this to happen, or for us to achieve something. And schools are divided up into perfect time slots, and they're not ideal for focusing on process. So if we want this to become part of a natural learning style for children, we have to rethink the way we structure this in schools. And I'm not talking about completely changing the way schools are structured. I'm talking about putting pressure on schools to reconsider their timing. Perhaps allocate 3 or 4 lessons in a row for a teacher to do a proper provocation, where children will be given time to really think about the solutions that they come up with, rather than asking them to finish in a very small time slot. I hope that gives you a sense today of some ideas of how we can make this really fun and engaging. I really have enjoyed the speakers so far, and I know that I'm really looking forward to Dr. Walter Stroop's presentation. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Mr. Brand, for reminding us that innovation thrives when it's both challenging and enjoyable. And I really like your idea about 3 Ps, like process, provocation, and lastly, playful. I just wanted to take a few seconds of all the speakers and the panelists over here and the people who have joined today. So I can share my experience how young kids are making innovations. Means this WRO is bringing a lot of change in innovations nowadays, and from last 18 years, and this is our 19th seasons, we are working towards it, and that's the reason why we want to bring WRO into classroom. So thank you very much. Now let's turn to our next speaker, Mr. Ashwini Saxena. He's the CEO of GMR Gara Lakshmi Foundation. Mr. Saxena has a distinguished career spanning over 32 years, having worked with leading organizations such as UNIDO, World Bank, corporates in India and Africa. He has led CSR and sustainability programs and championed IFC's sustainability tools in South Asia. He's a certified ESG director. He holds master degree in geology and business management and a certificate in CSR leadership from the University of Geneva. He is also a member of several national task forces and advisory committees and frequently contributes as a guest lecturer at premier institutions such as IIMs and IITs. So he'll be speaking on the topic equality and inclusive in STEM education. So put your hands together. Let's welcome Mr. Ashwini Saxena. Over to you, Mr. Saxena.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Tushar. That was more than an elaborate introduction of me. Just a practitioner working over the years, learning along the way. And I think the best part of my learning process has been that this has been also with a lot of students at the schools where we have worked, or with the students in the colleges where we've been supporting and working with them. Why is equality and inclusion so important, and especially for STEM education? I would first begin with that, and then maybe go into the further details, how maybe we can achieve equality and inclusion in STEM education. The fact is that STEM education itself is important for creating innovation, in creating innovating minds. And creating innovative minds, the scientific bent of mind, the analytical framework of mind, that is required, and that invariably comes through STEM education. And that is why STEM education remains very important element, especially at the school times, where the children have to grasp a whole range of subjects which are going to shape their future, regardless of whether they pursue STEM education later on in their careers or they go for other vocations. But the fundamentals of analytical bent of mind, critical thinking, all this comes through innovation. And this innovation, this innovative approach becomes useful for all work that they do in future. The second part, which is about equality and inclusion, is that it brings in a lot of diversity. And that diversity is also very important to not only ensure social progress or social growth, but also to help economic growth in a sense, because diversity helps you understand issues in a much better way. You get a much well-rounded perspective of societal issues, and that therefore solving them in the process. And equality and inclusion also eliminates a lot of biases and stereotypes that we may possess, and that need to be removed so that the world is a better place to live. So therefore, in terms of innovation, in terms of social growth, in terms of economic growth, equality and inclusion, especially in STEM education, becomes a very important pillar. Now, when we talk about equality and inclusion in STEM education, what are the two components when I look at it? When you talk about equality and inclusion, to me, two components come to my mind. One is access, and the second one is participation. Access can be then broken up into, you're talking about financial access, capability to pay for school education, geographical issues or physical proximity to the learning centers, and then of course the gender issues and the diversity issues and special needs of children. I think those are some of the critical areas where STEM education does need to be looked at in a more comprehensive manner. And participation, which is again the second part of improving STEM education, is itself dependent upon a number of underlying factors. And more so with my colleagues, who have joined from the other parts of the world, more so for developing countries like India, where STEM education itself, or the quality of STEM education which the child is going to imbibe, is dependent upon a number of underlying factors. And those underlying factors are sometimes as elementary as the kind of nutrition that the child has received during the first 1,000 days of his or her life, the kind of family background that the child has, by which it is a kind of a, you know, an opportunity or a lesser opportunity for a child, because a child may be coming from first generation learners, or could be coming from a good, background from the family side, so that education comes natural to them. Their underlying health issues, which are going to define whether the child is going to be able to participate in STEM education properly or not. Vision correction itself, for example, is a critical area in a country like India. And so, therefore, STEM education itself has a certain set of underlying issues which need to be addressed, which are of foundational numeracy and literacy, as we call that, and having an underlying understanding of those basic comprehension issues which need to be taken care of. If you look at the data in our country, out of 43 odd million students who are registered in the higher education, girls are opting roughly around 57% for STEM education. For boys, the choice is about 85%. So it also is not just about the environment at the school, it is also about the kind of work environment that is going to lie in future for these children, because of which the girls would typically choose non-STEM education rather than STEM education, despite having much better capabilities or equal capabilities than boys. I think the best mathematician in the modern times that I remember from India was Mrs. Shakuntala Devi, a woman. And numbers could simply flow to her and speak to her in a very lucid manner. Uh, Inclusion of various people, various types of people coming from different backgrounds, who could have been a better scientist for our country in modern times than Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam himself. So, say inclusion from a social aspect, inclusion from cultural aspect, inclusion from economic aspect. I think all these factors play a very important role in terms of whether we are giving right kind of STEM education opportunities or not. Now, uh, there are a lot of cultural norms also which predispose STEM education, and there remains a gender bias in that sense. And therefore, if you look at the global gender gap report by the World Economic Forum, it says that in technical roles, it's just about 29% roles being held by women in the country. And there's a long way to go. So it's a catch-22 situation, since there are no opportunities and there are certain cultural norms or barriers for women to join. Uh, Therefore, they are not opting for STEM education, and since there are not too many people joining STEM education, therefore they are not available for taking up suitable opportunities. So it's a catch-22 situation, and this has to be resolved. And it has to be resolved by breaking those systemic barriers that we see. How we can bring in inclusive teaching practices. Children with disabilities sometimes also are mavericks in terms of their understanding of science and technology, and therefore how do we create an inclusive environment for such children, regardless of gender, regardless of their social or economic backgrounds. I think that is a big key. And therefore, in order to achieve the status that we wish to have as a country, and bearing the fact that the demographic dividend is in favor of this country, it would be very important to make sure that education, especially STEM education, and that too with a lens of equality and inclusion in it, needs to be a top priority. And this can happen only with a lot of convergence between the various players, stakeholders of this ecosystem, with a lot of resources that need to be deployed, and not just in terms of physical infrastructure or physical resources, but also in terms of building a whole range of, I would say, educators, so that STEM education and the fundamental principles of STEM education are well understood and appreciated in the country. I'll stop at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saxena, for emphasizing the importance of creating opportunities for every learner to shine. The way you have included the statistics and demographics you have given, I hope all our attendees definitely find it very insightful. So next we have Mr. Sudhanshu Sharma. Before him, we were waiting for Ms. Monica Varia, but she's in no network zone. That is why she will not be able to join us. So I want to start with giving a brief intro of Mr. Sudhanshu Sharma. With over 30 years of entrepreneurial experience across manufacturing, international trade, robotics, technology transfer, automotive, engineering, edtech, and the social sector. He works in every sector, I must say. He has consistently designed and scaled innovative solutions for diverse markets. Beyond his leadership roles, Sudhanshu is passionate about mentoring and advising aspiring entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders. He provides hands-on guidance in startup mentoring and life skill coaching, empowering individuals to reach their full potential and drive sustainable growth. Always open to collaboration, Sudhanshu Sharma is dedicated to fostering innovation, impact, and meaningful change. Today's topic would be making STEM education accessible for all. I welcome Mr. Sudhanshu. Over to you.
Thank you, Tushar. I think you should have edited that very long introduction, but thank you so much. I would like to once again thank all the speakers who have joined today in this conclave, and my special and sincere gratitude to Dr. Walter Stroop, who has joined this conclave as keynote speaker, and he had to wake up early in the morning. I think must have not even slept because it's 5:30 or something a.m. in your country. Thank you so much for taking, for honoring this great occasion for us. Thank you so much, sir. Just summing up what I've learned from Sarabjit, that what kind of challenges and we have when we work with the government schools, and not only, but even other schools also, non-governmental school also, private schools also, we have several challenges, and he and his team are grappling with those challenges and trying to make it more easy for it to be implemented. It's not about that we want to implement, but it has to be easy to be implemented in the schools. So thank you so much for putting the effort to make it successful for the schools. We learned from Chiri Anurag ji that how innovation hubs are actually giving an opportunity in far and remote areas of this country where people otherwise would not have access to such things. And now you're planning to go to schools and also have these innovation labs getting extended into the schools. We are proud to have, and we are fortunate to have NCSM as a partner with India STEM Foundation and the growth of our STEM initiative through World Robot Olympiad. Thank you so much for your support. And I also liked the way Brent has discussed about the mistakes he made and where the learnings he has showed to us that we should make learning fun. And I 100% agree. And also, I also went through the same realization when I saw first time the WRO in 2006, and then I decided to start it in India. It had the same emotional experience that Brent went through in 2009 when he went to Korea. So this is something that we shared. Thank you for sharing that how it can be fun. Mr. Saxena, thank you so much for sharing the details around your ideas about the equality and inclusion. It is, girl children, we are living in a stereotypical society. Girl children are generally discouraged to, go into science and the other streams. And also we have it, and all the topics that you shared there, it's a complex world, even though everybody wants to include and give equality, but there are so many barriers. I think we'll all have to, work together, and so many other organizations who are working at grassroots level also need to jump into this way that how equality and inclusion can be brought in all stages of the education systems and other areas, even in jobs also. So thank you so much for sharing the insights with us. So, as already Sarabjit has discussed in his presentation about India STEM's vision to share, to, make STEM accessible to all. So this is what I will also, slightly touch upon, and not taking everybody's time. It all started in 2006. So, and when I was in Japan, and I saw the robotics competition, World Robot Olympiad, and that shook me up. And I said, oh, I have to go and do this, something like this in India. I was not a teacher like Brett was. I was running an automation systems company. I used to import technology into India for the engineering sector. So it was very close to what we were facing as a challenge. We were facing the challenge of hiring quality engineers, quality people, and we all blamed the road-based learning system in our country for all the problems we have, or all the bad roads that we had, and whatnot, and all those things we had at that time. still the roads have improved a lot, but there's still a lot to be done about it. So this is what we set out to be, and now we are committed to building an ecosystem of innovation and equipping people with the 21st century skills. So in 2006, we started with the World Robot Olympiad, and then introduced the first Lego League program also in India in 2009. And up to 2012, I was doing it in my personal capacity under the, whatever time we could find out from our organization, the company that I had, and all the people volunteered their time to do this. And by the time 2012, we had a lot of the growth of the program was growing, and foundation was created in 2012, and we had a separate team, and we started to transfer all the programs to the foundation. And during this period, we realized that hosting a competition alone is not enough, but we needed to build the capacity at a grassroots level. So we started the STEM robotics lab program called the Robo Shiksha Kendra. And I established the first one here in Gurgaon with the support of the government of Haryana in one of the government schools. And this was an amazing experience for those students. And we thought we'll train about 100 students, but then we realized that every student started lining up outside the classroom and they wanted to be brought inside the classroom. So the government of Haryana support extended it for the entire year. And in fact, they ended up setting up the lab in the school, and that was the first Robo Shiksha Kendra. So in 2014, I had bid for the international competition, the WRO, to be hosted in India. And then we partnered with the NCSM to host that international competition in India, which was a great success. And it was something that has been a dream for about 10 years, because from 2006 to 2016, 10 years we were aspiring to do that, and it happened in 2016. As we progressed, we had a blip. Everybody had that COVID, 2-3 years were lost in it. And then eventually we started developing new programs. One is our STEM education program, where we are actually supporting the STEM subject. Other than the STEM tinkering activity, which goes under the Robo Shiksha Kendra model, under Gyanodaya, we are supporting the schools to give them teacher support in terms of teaching them with physics, chemistry, bio, and other subjects, so that they can also excel in their board examination. And in 2023 saw us crossing 400 STEM tinkering labs in India, which we are supporting through our CSR partners. In 24, last year, we introduced the skill development program, where we are also linking up with employability skills for graduates. So this has been the journey for us over these years. And as I mentioned, these are some of our programs like World Robot Olympiad and the STEM education, Gyanodaya Anusikshan, on various areas of implementation in this country. I will show you a video which will put some light on what we are doing.
कुछ नया सीखने की कोशिश की बच्चे ने, कुछ आगे बढ़ने की चाहत रखी, और हम भी खुश हैं इस चीज़ से कि भी हमारे बच्चे आगे जाएं। हम नहीं पढ़ पाए, हम नहीं कुछ बन पाए, भी हमारे बच्चे आगे बढ़े। जैसे हमने अपने लड़की की नेहा की हेल्प की, ऐसे ही हर पेरेंट्स को अपने बच्चों की हेल्प करनी चाहिए। जिस चीज़ में उनकी रुचि है, उन्हें उसी चीज़ में आगे लेकर जाना चाहिए।
यहाँ पे इन स्कूल में पहले स्टेम लैब अवेलेबल नहीं थी, फिर इंडिया स्टेम फाउंडेशन और अमेज़ॉन की तरफ से हमारे स्कूल में स्टेम लैब अवेलेबल हुई। जो चीज़ हम जैसे साइंस और मैथ्स में पढ़ते हैं, वो हम यहाँ प्रैक्टिकली करके देख सकते हैं।
इनिशियली रूरल एरिया के बच्चे साइंस और मैथ सब्जेक्ट में इंटरेस्ट नहीं लेते थे, पर जैसे उनको स्टेम लैब के बारे में पता चला, स्टेम लैब में उन्होंने साइंस और मैथ्स के थ्योरेटिकल जो भी पढ़ते थे वो प्रैक्टिकली उसके अंदर किया, तो उनका साइंस और मैथ सब्जेक्ट में इंटरेस्ट बढ़ा। अब वो बच्चे अर्बन एरिया के बच्चों के कंपेटेबल हो गए हैं।
जब से बच्चे कंपटीशन से वापस आए हैं, तो उन्होंने जैसे आसपास अपने बच्चों को ये चीज़ बताई है कि हमने ये रैंक हासिल किया है, या उन्होंने क्लास में ये चीज़ शेयर की है, तो उससे जितने भी पेरेंट्स हैं सबको बहुत अच्छा मैसेज गया है, और वो भी चाहते हैं कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा अपने बच्चों को स्टेम टिंकरिंग लैब से जोड़ के रखें।
We are thankful that Amazon has identified and supporting the STEM education initiative and making it accessible to quite a lot of students who did not have access prior. We are really happy that this is going to help them in the future.
And I have a couple of videos to show you about the beneficiaries and how they.
Hello, my name is Arnav Takle and I am pursuing Bachelor's of Engineering degree in Electronics and Telecommunication at Siyangan Institutes. During my school years at Lakshmanrao Apte Prashala, I had the incredible opportunity to participate in the Robotics Education Center established by India STEM Foundation and Tata Technologies. I got inspired by robotics, and now I have joined robotics team in my college and currently serving as electronics head there. The hands-on learning approach made the concept easier to understand and much more enjoyable. We learned a lot while playing, which boosted my confidence and motivation to pursue a career in engineering. Also, I got an opportunity to represent my school at World Robotic Olympiad at Delhi. This program has inspired many of my classmates to aim for higher education in the technical field as well. I believe that more and more students should take part in Robotics Education Center by India STEM Foundation and Tata Technologies to gain a similar transformative experience. Hello.
One more.
Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Pushpa Shah and I am pursuing BSc Non-Medical with Computer Science at Government Girls College Sector 14, and previously I studied Shahid Lieutenant Atul Gataria Government Girls Senior Secondary School at Gurugram. I feel grateful to STEM Foundation and Floor India for introducing the Gyno Day program in our school. Through this initiative, they provided dedicated teachers who supported us in physics, math, biology, chemistry, and their guidance make complex concept easier to understand, and they improving my academic performance also, so that as a result I am able to achieve higher marks in my 12th board exam. And it also helped me to secure admission to the BSc Non-Medical with Computer Science program, so that I'm pursuing now. And I sincerely thanks to STEM Foundation and Floor India for the invaluable support in our education, and their effort have played a crucial role in my academic journey. So thank you so much, sir.
So these are just a few of the students who have benefited. There are thousands of them who have gone through our programs in the last 19 years that we have been doing it. And we are so enthused and encouraged that we have decided that we really need to do something more. So we have taken upon ourselves a mission that over the next 5 years, we would mobilize at least 100 crores, which is approximately $12 million, to build a more robust and inclusive ecosystem of STEM education, and so that we can support more and more number of students. So this is a vision that I not only myself, but my entire team at India STEM Foundation is believing in, and this is, I think we can do. But this is a big task that we have set out for us ourselves, and I think we cannot do it alone without all the help that we can get from our partners, from all the corporates and the educators and individuals around us. So we have to work together so that we can have more young minds in India. We can solve the global problems and we can contribute to the future society. These are some of our partners so far that have helped us and continuing to help, and we are looking at more and more partners who will support us. That is, thank you so much for everybody's attention and time, and I will not hold you from listening to the keynote speak from Dr. Stroop. Welcome, Dr. Stroop. Over to you, Tushar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for reminding us about the inclusivity and that accessibility that the STEM Foundation is being providing to the young innovators. So it's time to welcome our keynote speaker, that is Dr. Walter Stroop. He is from University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. He's holding a chair as the Department of STEM in University of Massachusetts with over 30 years of experience as an education researcher and product developer. He is a pioneer in group-based STEM learning and inventor of pattern-based assessment methods. His work in generative design and future focus on swarm robotics highlights a holistic approach to STEM education. He will share insights on generative design and virtues of asking questions backward in STEM classrooms. So put your hands together. Let's welcome Dr. Walter Stroop. Over to you.
Need to unmute myself. That's a mistake I make frequently. So as we all talk about mistakes, that's one of many that you might see. I really appreciate this opportunity, and let's see if I can get the technology to do what it needs to. in terms of the talks that came beforehand, I sort of feel like I'm going to be borrowing from you all. And obviously, we didn't communicate beforehand, so there's a kind of convergence that may be happening that I welcome. And in fact, in one case, for Director Kumar, I actually stole one of your slides as you were talking. So I hope that's okay. All right, let's see if we can get the technology to do what it's supposed to do. Can you see the whole slide?
Yes, yes.
Is that working? All right. Well, now that's the hard part. Everything else is downhill. I'm aware of time, and I don't want to solve the problem by doing what professors often do, which is just talk too fast. So I want to sort of focus in on a few ideas. Obviously, generative design and this crazy idea of asking questions backward. And part of what I want to try and do is pay attention to the kinds of things that you all have talked about as working. And can we take some of the kind of design ideas that come from what is working and make them part of day-to-day practice? So that's my goal. So can we make creativity? Can we make innovation? Can we make agency? Can we make these things real in a kind of day-to-day way in the STEM classroom? Now, in terms of another name for generative design is diversity by design, and you'll see in a second the consequence of asking questions backward is that you open up a space of kid-created responses. And so that has a double meaning, that the diversity of who they are and the things that they create that are related to STEM, so the content itself becomes a kind of activity, are front and center. So there are various titles for generative design, but one of them is diversity by design. And so I hope to pull out some of those ideas. I do want to acknowledge the National Science Foundation, especially if you've been keeping track of what's happening in the United States. They have funded many rounds of my own work and the work of colleagues. So it's important to me personally to acknowledge their contribution to my work. So thank you for the invitation. I think Dr. Harold is responsible for me being here, and I've appreciated the opportunity to do this. I think what got me here is, well, let me just quickly say, Mr. Hutchinson, Brent Hutchinson talked about his 3 Ps. Turns out I have 3 Ps too. So again, there's lots of places where I feel like we must have telepathically connected with all of the speakers. So I'm going to talk about possibility, participation, and patterns, and where in order to open up the classroom as a place where you can be creative, that the content itself becomes the thing that organizes the activity. So we'll come back to that in a second. But I think Dr. Harold found me because this image I put on LinkedIn, and I said, what is this? And I gave a hint that this was black tape. And I got a number of responses from people that do robotics. This is almost a given that this is about a robot following a path around a track. Now, it just turns out Dr. Kumar had his example, so I went and screenshotted the presentation as he was going. But this is an example of a kind of activity that's done in robotics. And it's so ubiquitous and it's so successful that almost anywhere that you say robotics, this will be done. So the question then becomes, what is it about that activity that we can draw on for kind of day-to-day practice? So the thing that I'm going to sort of push on throughout this talk is this contrast between tutoring design or tutoring type questions and generative design. So tutoring type questions in the context of a simulation or robotics might be a very simple, what does this code do? Ask turtles to do this stuff. You can look at the code if you want to. But if I ask that question, there's one right answer that I might answer in words like below, or I might draw a sketch, but everybody in the room is going to have the same answer, right? So this is what I mean by one right answer, and I call it a tutoring type question, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But what might be interesting about that path activity is that there's more than one right answer. Here's a path, and can you follow it? And there are lots of ways that the students could pursue that. And so I want to take some aspects of this task design and see if we can make it ubiquitous in day-to-day STEM education. So I just erased the robot. Where did the robot go? The history of the language, like Scratch or Logo, and more recently agent-based modeling, was actually, it was originally a robot. So people that know something about Turtle and programming the Turtle, and there are different languages for doing that, including Scratch, it was actually a robot before it was a turtle on the screen. So there's an interaction between simulation and robot that I think we should revive. And one of the things looking forward for robotics, and I did flag for people that I'm not going to talk primarily about robotics, but I think in the future there's going to be a thing called swarm robotics. It is already being pursued within the sort of defense world, and I could talk about some of that, those examples. But swarm robotics would be where you have multiple robots and that you're controlling them, or there's some ways that they make decisions collectively that allow for some kind of emergent result. So they could form a line. They could do a real world application is search and rescue. So you have some boat that has floated, has sunk off the coast. And how do you begin to think about searching? So there's ways in which the robotics might move from kind of individual robots to kind of swarm robotics across a number of tasks. But as I say, I'm not talking primarily about robotics. So I think that's one example. What we can draw from the robotics is what is it about the design that we could bring into classrooms in a kind of day-to-day way. So every classroom all the time. I love the pictures of the children on the left, so I included that partially for that reason. So the first question I would ask, if we look at an image of a classroom, what might be the most obvious feature, or at least one of the most obvious features? So lots of times people list things, but the thing that I would want to focus on, and that is the focus of this talk, is it's a group setting. I've coached soccer for many years. It's more like a soccer field with multiple players than it is kicking a ball against the wall, right? So kicking the ball against the wall is what I'll call tutoring approach. But this kind of group-based design, how do we do group-based design? I think part of what's successful about that earlier robotics task is there are lots of ways of participating in this. So educational design, if it's going to be successful and scale and have impact, needs to pay attention to the primary feature of a classroom, that it is a group context. Now, this comes back to the three Ps, and in doing this, I'm going to talk about possibility, participation, and pattern, and there are different aspects of that relationship to generative design. Okay, this is the thing that I want to contrast with. Instead of designing for the group, we tend to do tutoring type tasks. Tutoring type tasks make sense if you're doing a one-on-one interaction. So if you hire a tutor, you might expect them to ask questions like, what's 2x plus 2x? And then the student that's being tutored would try and figure out the answer to that and might answer that, and they would go back and forth like that. So this is in a classroom, what's 2x plus 2x? But I want to make the case that it actually breaks in a classroom. So if the teacher asks what's 2x plus 2x and one student sticks up their hand, the hope is that everybody's paying attention to that. But the reality is a one-on-one interaction, and there's no design for the other 25, 35 students in the classroom. There's nothing for them to do except the expectation that somehow they're going to be paying attention to what's going on. So this is a tutoring type design. It's only one right answer. In terms of patterns, you only get very, very limited information and only about that one student, which is really inefficient. In terms of participation, what are the other students really doing? Now, we would like them to be hanging on to everybody's words, but the reality is maybe they're not, okay? And so how do we solve that instead of the response from, because we have this tutoring image in our head as that's what education is about and should be done best, forgetting about all the places in which we do things in group context, soccer, music, dance, so on, including research groups. We try and sustain this form of questioning, this form of task. And what do? We use certain technologies like the Xerox machine. So now I can take the 2x plus 2x question and I can give each student simultaneously a really badly designed question, but nonetheless, I can give it to every single student and they can do their worksheet and they can turn it into me. The teacher is the only arbiter of whether they understand. So going back to some things that Brent said and others have said, who gets to decide what's right? It should be the students developing agency. Instead, we use the Xerox machine to maintain a certain kind of approach to asking questions. And that approach to asking questions, while it might be fine in a one-on-one situation, actually breaks in the group context. Now we can use chalkboards, and I'm going to use an example in a second, but the goal is a simple kind of right-wrongness. Essentially, the teacher is the only person who can decide that, and that the upfront space, the social space, is controlled by the teacher. So you might invite a student up to work one of the problems, but you're actually not using it as a way for kids to share their ideas. So tutoring type questions, the possibilities are very limited. In other words, the way in which you can respond to what is 2x is quite small. And the question the kids always ask is, did I get it right or did I get it wrong? So this is kind of what can happen. It's a consequence of bad design. It undermines participation, possibility, and pattern, of focus on patterns. Now, being aware of time, one of the ways that that shows up is the 2x plus 2x question. Another way that you can do this is make the answer, in this case 4x, the question. So what do I mean by that? Instead of asking the kids what's 2x plus 2x, they can use a graphing calculator. This is a classroom, in the United States, the euphemism for underserved settings is fraction of the students that are on school lunch. This is a school where it's 100% school lunch. There's 3 first languages. It's a full inclusion classroom, so there are various range of special education interventions. So this teacher asked the kids to create things that are the same as 4x. Bye. And I want 5 of them. On the left are some examples of what they created within the first 6 minutes. So they're actually creating them. If you watch the video, which I put a link to, the examples get harder and harder. So it's almost like on a soccer field, somebody does something interesting, then I want to learn how to do it. Then I have to do something more interesting. And it sort of does that social dynamic that we do in every single realm of human existence except school. All right. By the way, this videotape was influential in Texas developing a product called Navigator that I helped work on as an outside consultant, because they said, oh, that's a reason that you want to build a network, because you want to have kids be able to share ideas. So there's a kind of tech development side to this. So before getting too much into the technology side, I wanted to back up a little bit and say, you can do this with the technology we can find in schools. In fact, slates, if they're there, you can use them. So for example, a 2-column addition problem. Nobody's going to argue that, that sounds sexy. It does not sound sexy. It sounds like the kind of low-level stuff that everybody hates. No, you can make it into something that's playful, to use some of the words that were there. So 32 plus 12 is a canonical example of a 2-column addition. There's kind of one right answer. You can ask the kids to get the right answer. The alternative with generative is to say, listen, I don't know what's behind these question marks, but I know it adds up to 54. Bye. I want you to come up with 2 or 3 things that could do that. Exactly the same mathematics. Exactly the same mathematics is being used to make it social instead of individual and alone. So one of my problems with individualized and personalized is it really means alone. And so what we're trying to do is say, no, there's this group around, and why not leverage that as a kind of feature instead of a bug? So if we turn it around, we can ask the kids to create things. They can come up with at least one. They can talk to their shoulder buddies, so this person next to them, about whether they think it's right or wrong, and talk to each other about the mathematics itself. And then the teacher can choose, or the kids can choose in a lot of cases, to put their examples in a public space like the front board, so no longer controlled by the teacher, but in fact a place where we share our work instead of see how it's done correctly, right? And so even if you have enough room on the board, you have kids put all of their examples up. So in the same time that a teacher might go over one example, you actually have 30 examples on the board of likely to be correct responses. And the kids start to see the pattern, and that becomes an important thing in just a moment. So the patterns, if we look at the first round that you do something like this, and I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to try and cut this down a bit. But if you look at the patterns of what kids might do in the first case, all of these are right. Some of them are kind of humorous. You've got 4, 1, and 1, 4, and so there's a diagonal here. This might be somebody who has a kind of puckish streak that says 53 plus 1 is 54, and you go, yeah, that's right, and that's kind of funny. But so humor starts to appear because it's playful in the way that I think Brent was talking about. But there's a pattern. So if I'm a teacher and I look at these and I teach this stuff day in and day out, there's something that's missing. So there's a lot of good here. There's a lot of success here, but they didn't do anything with carrying. So you can do another iteration where you say, okay, folks, those were all great, but now I need at least one of the numbers in the first column to be bigger than 4. Bye. Bigger than 4 means that they'll say, how do you do that? You can't be bigger than 4 and add up to 4. You sure? What if I put 7 plus 7? Oh yeah, you'd have to carry the 1, right? So now we're exploring a kind of harder thing within a very basic set of mathematics in a kind of playful way, where again, you have the students create ones, talk to each other about them and put them on the board. Much more efficient, much more mathematics is done in this playful way. So no longer, Brent, do we have to apologize for the time it takes time. We can actually say this time is more efficiently used if you leverage the group capabilities, right? So I think I've got a short period of time. Now, I've provided a bunch of links. There's a form of assessment here. So here's a 3-column edition that was done with, I think, almost 60,000 third graders. The distribution above is the different combinations of letter responses. So this is called pattern-based assessment, but it grows out of what I just did with generative design. So then you can create assessments that look for patterns and how kids think about this task, including the carrying business. And that's the stuff that teachers need, and that's the stuff that we expect them to be able to do. But instead of giving them a score or a number, we're actually paying attention to their understanding. And that's radically different from other things. Now, Commissioner of a very big state, Texas, asked us to do this statewide. So there's a report that there's a link there that was done with over 400,000 kids. So we can go from generative design to pattern-based assessment and see that these patterns show up not just in individual classrooms, but also statewide. So if there are patterns that we're concerned about or ones that we want to celebrate, we can do that across levels instead of having this disconnect between teachers and, for example, administrators and school leaders and so forth. I'm also teaching in an ADD program that is populated by principals and superintendents. All right. In terms of practical things, I have a link to a kind of design rubric. I've only been able to talk about some of the features, but if you're going to design lessons, this is something I use with teachers. I work with teachers every week and have worked with teachers throughout my career, now going almost 40 years. Other resources, we primarily talked about the stuff in the orange box, but there's other contexts for doing this kind of diversity by design. Certainly an engineering task or a task where you're shooting towards a goal, that would be an example of that. There's some other ones that I've left off here, including participatory simulations where you immerse yourself in the simulation where, for example, you have to control traffic. And that you've got a certain amount of, everybody controls a traffic light, and somehow together we have to figure out how to control traffic better. So kind of at the high end, group-based cloud computing, you can use you can use cell phones, you can use laptops to do this group-based computing. The role of computing technology is to open up possibilities, where creativity is part of innovation, where possibility is kind of the core of this message, and that supports participation. So if you've got possibility, then you can participate in lots of ways, and then patterns will be used to create the activity, but also to assess the results. There's a video link to that project, which is an NSF-funded project, group-based design, where we create a classroom as a highly interactive space. But I went 2.5 minutes over, so I apologize for that. But thank you. That QR code will get you there. And what I'm going to do with that's a Google Doc, Google Sheets. I'll add in some more links based on some of the conversations we had so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stroop, for challenging us to rethink how we approach towards teaching and learning in STEM. You also
emphasize that you all started it. I was just cashing in on your ideas.
Yeah, so basically you were also talking about 3 Ps in different scenarios, like we have seen that possibility, pattern, and participation. It definitely give insights and question how generative questions can be asked to bring new innovations in teaching. And also kids will be definitely thinking out of the box by having these kind of exercises, and they will be coming up with new innovations. And that what Mr. Brent was also quoting, that we have to come up with some kind of playful teaching. That's what really nice. Now we move to one of the most anticipated segments of this evening, that is the panel discussion. And the topic of the panel discussion would be challenges faced while implementing the STEM education in the school. So this panel discussion will be moderated by Ms. Swati Sood. She is the head of CSR and partnership at India STEM Foundation. She is a dynamic leader in STEM education and CSR. She drives impactful collaboration to establish STEM labs, train educators, and promote robotics competitions like WRO in India. So with extensive experience in strategic partnership, she works closely with corporates, government bodies, and schools to equip students with future-ready skills through experiential learning. After this panel discussion, we'll be opening Q&A section as well, and we'll ask all the attendees. They can feel free to type their queries in the question answer box, and we'll ensure they will be addressed by our speakers and panelists after this panel discussion. So over to you, Mr. Sood.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you for calling me Mr. I loved it. I think
said
you're
miss,
being too humble in
maybe
introduction today. So thank you so much for the beautiful introductions, and I'm grateful to be part of the conclave. So here I take an opportunity to introduce the panel here, and I think it's going to be very exciting to have this discussion going around between the esteemed panelists. So to start off, I would like to introduce Ms. Deepika Rao, an education leader with 27 plus years of experience, who serves as principal at Oak Ridge International School, Hyderabad, and director of education at Nord Angela Education, India. She has held key roles at GEMS Kolkata, DPSG Gurgaon, and EISB Bangalore. Known for her strategic vision, she champions innovation, ethical problem solving, and real world learning to create impactful educational experiences. We welcome you, Ms. Rao. Next, we have Ms. Elizabeth David, who has done MA B.Ed from Calcutta University. She comes up with over 18 years in the teaching profession. It is a fourth board SSC, earlier with ICSE, Cambridge IGSE, and CBSE. We welcome you, Ms. David. Up next, we have Mr. Harish Sanduja, Director of Schools and IT at Seth Anandram Jaipuria Group of Educational Institutions, a distinguished academician with over 25 years of experience. He has held key positions such as Director Principal of Birla Public School, Doha, and Sai International School, Bhubaneswar. A level 2 IB trained expert in mathematics and physics. Oh my God, sir. Mr. Sanduja has contributed to curriculum development for CBSE and served on national educational committees. He's recognized.
You can avoid all this, please.
Sorry?
You can avoid all this.
Sir, I think the world needs to know what you have achieved. I mean, I'm also thrilled. Mathematics and physics, I think we all are very scared of these subjects. So thank you so much for being here. And at the end, you're also recognized and was honored by Governor of Odisha. So thank you so much, sir, for being here. At the last but not the least, we have Dr. Savita Chakravarti, Director, 10X International School, has over 2 decades of experience in teaching various international curricula and teachers training. She started her career in the inner city schools of Chicago and joined Indus International School, Bangalore in 2011. Since then, she has held several leadership positions at Indus, including heading the international curriculum, middle years program, the diploma program, and the physics department. So I welcome all of you and thank you so much for being here. I believe Ms. Rao might not be able to contribute in the discussion. She has recently gone under eye surgery and she's facing a little challenge with her health right now, but she's right here. And I think she would be very happy to listen to the entire panel. I would also request all the speakers to be part of the discussion. Please feel free to share your views, suggestions, open up as much as possible discussions. So today's topic, as Tushar had mentioned, it's challenges faced while implementing STEM education in schools. So I would request Ms. Elizabeth David to come forward and share your views to start.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. And thank you to all the previous speakers for your valuable input on STEM education. Now, coming to the challenges faced, I'd like to particularly talk about my kind of school. Here, the teachers of my school, they have no or limited training. None of them want to, they have a traditional way of teaching, so they do not want any kind of changes. STEM education emphasizes on inquiry-based learning, collaboration, problem solving, and all that. But my teachers are really resisting to change. Now, this is one of the biggest challenges that I have because this is an old school of 28 years old. So these teachers have been here for a long time. Getting them involved into STEM education is really challenging And related to this only, my other challenges are, okay, now how to have assessments, how to train these teachers. Uh, Another problem that I'm really facing is the gender bias that I'm finding in my school. The boys, maybe because of the socio-economic background, they are openly coming forward and participating, but it's not so where the girls are concerned. I don't know how many others are facing similar problems and challenges, but mine is pretty significant.
That's very true, Miss Elizabeth. I think while implementing the programs, when we also go on the ground, right? So these are major two challenges which we have also been facing, wherein, when we want to make programs sustainable, right? And when we want to make programs sustainable, the most important part is to train the teachers of the school. Now, of course, it's a beautiful question being asked by you, that how do we train the teachers? How do we create that or bring up that curiosity in the teachers so that they want to learn? It should not be like a push mechanism, but they should be coming forward, and they should be, they should be willing to learn. So that's a beautiful question. And I would request other panelists also to kind of come forward and answer, or maybe, help and guide us. So maybe Mr. Sandeja, if you can help us with your thought process, and of course, what is your experience, or what are the challenges which you face?
Technically, I think one of the prime challenges that we face is, apart from teachers, with the children. When we want them to go through the whole program or the process of STEM, it starts very early, grade 2, 3 onwards. And there, reading to comprehension becomes a major challenge. So it is not necessary that a child who is reading English is actually able to understand. And when you want a child to develop scientific temperament or mathematical skills, one of the critical things that happens there is, if you give a word problem to a child, then the child might not be able to comprehend the language that is being used in the word problem. Sometimes the children are able to comprehend, but then they're not able to decide what mathematical variables or what mathematical operation needs to be done in the content itself. So this was one of the major steps that we found, that if you want to do better in mathematics, you have to focus on the reading ability and the comprehension skills of the children. And the younger children uh, have this major problem. For example, if I ask a question that there were two friends who went into a mall or somewhere and spent this much money. They had this much money in their pocket and gave it to the shopkeeper, and how much should they be getting, or do an equal division, something like that. Now, the problem that arises with the younger children is that they would read this question, and many a times those who are not very good with their comprehension and conversion of a language into a mathematical equation, they, instead of answering this, will actually make some guess. And they will look at the face of a teacher or a mother, and then they will ask politely, division, I think division is to be done, and then they will give a smile. And then they will look for a smile on the face of a mother or a teacher for an affirmation whether what they are thinking is right or not. And hence, what happens is, instead of taking a decision on the basis of what is being read and comprehended, they take the decision on the basis of their interaction with an adult who is around. And then they keep on growing on those lines. So it becomes extremely important at times for us as educators to make sure that am I still there?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. So I was just saying that it becomes extremely important for us as adults that before we start getting into STEM, we need to make sure that the base of language is done very well. So once that is done well, then the infrastructure of mathematics, science, technology starts getting into place. And one of the best ways to do now, in last 6 months, I have seen, is actually you can also use a lot of AI platforms, which can actually compensate for the some skills that the teachers lack. I would highly recommend some AI platforms for teachers. That supposing you want to bring in STEM into your lesson plans and you want to get things done, you can use, say, Flint K12. If you have Flint K12.ai, then it becomes a very good resource uh, to plan a lesson as per the need that you have. And also it gives a simulation to a teacher that when a student goes through it, what is it that the student is going to experience? And when the teacher runs it for the class, say if I have 40 children in my class and I actually mail it out to them, it's an AI platform, and then it, for up till 80 children, it works free. So the best advantage that the teacher gets is that the children are able to go through that experience of STEM, which you would have used in drafting your lesson plan and what you wanted the children to learn. And the kind of report it gives you is also quite amazing. And it is very interactive. So those issues which we used to have with the teachers can be very well bridged by using the AI platforms now. So that's what my thought is.
Beautiful, Mr. Sanduja. Thank you so much. I think now we have got 3 beautiful points and a very valid points. First, we spoke about teachers training and how difficult it is. Second is gender equality, which Miss Elizabeth, another, point. And then now the third one, which is a comprehension, language comprehension. This is another pointer which we really come across when we, let's say, when we are implementing our programs in Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, the basic language barrier becomes major for us to implement such programs because our textbooks majorly are in English, right? And now the trainers have to transform those textbooks into their local language so that the students are able to understand, right? So now, Dr. Savita, I would request your thoughts on, the challenges which all of us are facing together. How do you think that, we can come up and then find a right solution for all of this?
Okay, my context is slightly different. First of all, I'd like to thank India STEM Foundation for having me here, and Swati for that wonderful introduction, and all the speakers who went ahead of all of us, ahead of the panel. We all got some really good insights into what is the problems with, implementing STEM in schools. But our context is, as I said, slightly different, right? So we have a school of only 9th to 12th graders. It's a high school. We do have a STEAM lab, and our challenge is upskilling teachers, yes, like Miss Elizabeth brought out. And what I found, an answer to your question probably as to how teachers can upskill, of course, they'll have to do a lot of the learning on their own. There are a lot of resources, but still nothing works the best like actually getting your own hands dirty. So even teachers should be part of projects, or if not along with the students, they can do their own projects. We have a person who manages the STEAM lab. So he is able to give some training to the teachers on some of the basics of, all the electronic components or 3D printing or, robotics or whatever may be the case. But the best way it works, I think, is that when students are allowed to go ahead and do their projects. And how we are doing it, we are, of course, running the International Baccalaureate curriculum. So we have integrated STEAM into the curriculum. So what students are required to do is demonstrate their understanding of concepts through STEAM. So which means that they would have to actually go to the STEAM lab and either create a product or create some kind of anything. For example, let's say they were learning about the digestive system, right? So they create the entire model of the digestive system and try to get it into a working model using the 3D printer, printing different parts, putting it up, trying to explain how it actually works. A lot of working prototypes or proof of concept is actually created by the students. Now, what I found is the students of today are much more technologically savvy. They know how to use AI for coding, right? They're very smart compared to the traditional teachers that all of us are. So yes, it requires upskilling, which teachers probably will do now or will be forced to do through their students as well. So the role, like Dr. Stroop was talking about, the role of the traditional teacher, or even Mr. Brent, he was saying that earlier he used to just teach, knowledge was given, and he was testing for that knowledge given, but he didn't really know whether the students were able to apply that knowledge. So we are looking at it more from an application perspective. When we send the student into the lab saying that, okay, go and create something, use your creativity, use whatever resources are available, use AI even if you have to get ideas, use the 3D printer, do video content making, do some kind of chart only if it is, or a cardboard model, doesn't matter, but do something to demonstrate that you have actually understood the concept. So now what is our biggest challenge is actually time, because we are working on a structured kind of weekly. You have so many periods, so many classes are given to different subjects. We are saying interdisciplinary connections, try to find those, connect computer science with language, for instance, show how Macbeth, I mean, the concept of the character of Macbeth might actually be, demonstrated through concepts from computer science. So students are at a slightly higher level, I think, than what all of us have been discussing over here today. But the challenge becomes then time. Students do not have enough time in the STEAM lab. So much so that our students who live on campus are actually willing to work over the weekends in the STEAM lab. So our biggest challenge is time. And if you're really looking at problem-based learning from the real world perspective, and we do a lot of design thinking as well in the school. So if they have to actually go out to the field and understand what is the user's concern, or what is it that the user needs, help with, or something like that, there again we have a challenge with, these field visits, then coming back, collecting user data, collecting secondary data. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that students are really, really capable of, but it would all depend on, how we as teachers probably guide them through that process. And because of the way things are being done, again, I would take a word that Dr. Stroop used, which is agency. We do see a lot of agency coming from the students' end.
Right. I think it looks like we need a lot more time to explore all the opportunities and possibilities what we are discussing right now. And probably, the next conclave, I think Sudhanshu and, the entire team of ISF, we can actually focus more towards discussing all these points, because beautiful ideas have come up and the real-time challenges which we are talking today. So thank you so much, Dr. Savita, as well, for your thoughts. To sum up, we understand that there are a lot of challenges to implement STEAM and making it hands-on and making it more fun-based learning for the students and the teachers, specifically. So I think as a community, we all need to come together, as Dr. Savita beautifully mentioned, that we have to include all of these subjects within their curriculum, right? So that the interest is built up gradually, naturally, and not as a push-based mechanism. Stipulated time. So I think we got to be discussing more in detail, because forward we will keep having more challenges coming forward. So we'll keep discussing that. So thank you so much, all the panelists. Thank you so much, all the speakers. And I would request Tushar to take it over. And if we may have any questions from our viewers, listeners, we can please take that up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sood. Now I'm correct, I
Thank
think.
you.
Yeah, so basically we are already 10 minutes over with our time. Okay, so we'll take maximum 1 or 2 questions from the chat. Mostly questions have been answered by panelists. And let me take one question from Dr. Walter Stroop. There is a question asked by Gumalari Esat Prasad. He said that when we talk STEM, it is interdisciplinary and integrated in approach of teaching subjects like science and maths. But engineering and technology is not a subject for them, but they find difficult to include them with the previous two. How to deal with this? Please, Dr. Walter Stroop. think you are on mute. Yeah.
I smiled because, oh, that little question. It's a big question. But I think when it comes to coding and technology and so forth, there's one urge that says, at least in the United States, that that's something that happens down the hall. So there's a place where kids learn to code, and there's a place where they do robotics, and there's a place, but that's not part of the day-to-day curriculum. So one of my closest colleagues is Uri Walensky. I mentioned him in one of the slides at Northwestern. We can incorporate these things into teaching math. We can incorporate them into doing physics if we're creative about it. If we don't think of it as kind of an allergic reaction, okay, we got this new stuff, and the traditional teachers fight against that, and we'll have this kind of tug of war. Where we say no, that what Uri Walensky talks about is integrating coding, integrating technology across the curriculum, and including in history. So if you want to look at migration patterns, you can look at agent-based modeling to look at how migration patterns of humans or even birds. You can look at issues like segregation and history. So there's a lot of ways in which the technologies can be incorporated into all subject matters, including language arts. There's some patterns in how we use language. Those can be looked at in computationally. In fact, that early example of the word problem, what if you flip that over and say, hey, kids, here's a 2x plus 3, come up with a word problem that goes with that. And then they can use whatever tools to edit that. So instead of giving them the word problem in English like I'm doing now too fast, ask them, flip it over. This is what I mean by asking questions backward. Give them 2x plus 3 and say, I want 3 different situations where that could be useful in the world. It turns out that there aren't that many because a linear expression is incredibly not useful, but that's a separate conversation.
Thank you very much. I'll take one more question. Rest questions can be sent to our email ID. I'll request Ghanshyam to put our email ID in the chat box so that the attendees, they can raise the question and we'll make sure it will be answered. The next question we would like to ask from Mr. Brent. The question is, how can simplifying the STEM education help bridge the gap between traditional learning and future job requirements? This question is from Sohan Pal Singh.
Yeah, big questions to try and answer in a small space of time. I'll give you just some really practical examples. I'm a teacher by my background is teaching, but also a technology teacher, and I think simple pieces of information that just help people understand is useful. One of the things that I think is a problem around the world and why STEM is so difficult for teachers to move into, it's not difficult for the children, it's difficult for the teachers, is that we introduce manipulatives to children too late. We start really badly in schools by giving them the wrong tools to play with. Most ECD centers around the world use 2 very destructive tools, a pair of scissors and glue, and those destroy children because they give them one chance to get things right. And that's not a good start if we want to think about technology and embracing technology and change. So we need to change that. We need to put manipulatives into their hands. We need to get them to build their answers. We need to get them to explore their answers. I love the way Dr. Spook spoke about presenting them with the answer and asking them to come up with a question. Those are ways around doing that. So if we can get manipulatives into their hands very early, the one thing that we do is we actually start solving some of the questions that you guys were talking about, which is brilliant. The first one is language. Language is essential, but what part of language is causing problems around the world today with comprehension? So we talk about reading for meaning. Why is reading for meaning creating a problem around the world? And I saw some answers coming up in the question group that were excellent. So read them. There's some brilliant answers there. But I'll give it to you in a very simple sense. Some of the words that create a problem are prepositions. Prepositions create a problem because if you misinterpret the preposition, you are going to struggle to understand the question, and therefore you will not be able to make the correct answer. And prepositions are all about spatial awareness. If you think about prepositions, they talk to a position. And in mathematics, that position is vital. If we get that wrong, it's going to completely destroy our understanding of whether it's a comprehension or a mathematical issue. Spatial awareness is a critical area that schools and teachers can work on to make a big impact towards bridging the gap between traditional teaching and the new kind of thinking around STEM. So if we just focus on a few very practical things, we can start making a tradition. And this isn't asking teachers to change dramatically. It's giving teachers small practical things that will shift them towards understanding, and then allow the children to start demonstrating the things that they're actually really good at. So I think it's little things that we have to do. It's not as big as everybody says in terms of something too difficult to handle. It's little things that we got to get right, but it starts with putting manipulatives in the hands of children. I believe that if we can get children to build concepts and get an understanding through the building and breaking down. I saw that slide earlier of the break and remake. I think that's absolutely brilliant. That's how we learn. We don't learn in building up. We learn in breaking down. And that's what we've got to learn in the world. It's the putting things back together again that are going to help children with all of this. So whether that's literacy, numeracy, life skills, all of those depend on that same kind of model. So that's my suggestion, simple suggestion for going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brent, and it was nicely answered. So we have come to conclusion now. I'll invite Ms. Swati Sood to give a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you so much, everyone. It had been a wonderful session, and I think it had been a great learning for all of us. So as we come close to this transformative event, I would like to take a moment to thank everyone who made this possible today. First, a heartfelt thank you to all the incredible speakers, panelists, and our hosts, Mr. Tushar Gupta, who had been able to give beautiful introduction to each one of us. So thank you so much, Tushar. All of your contribution have been truly inspiring today, and we really look forward to have you in our next conclave, which will be happening very soon. And a very, very big thank you to all of you, our attendees, for being part of this remarkable journey and making this event a success today. So thank you so much, everyone, and let's continue to work together to empower minds, inspire innovation, and shape a better future through STEAM, not STEM, but STEAM. Until we meet again, stay curious, keep innovating, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.